So my name is Ms. Hemming, and I'm the work-based learning coordinator. If you don't know who I am, my job is to help connect careers with things in school and outside of school. And this is always a crazy time of the year, because it's at the end, but I've been wanting for a long time to be able to do something for the art department, but particularly in photography, so I'm very excited about this career panel. And we are videotaping this. If I can ask you out of respect to please put away your phones. You will only need them at the end to take a survey that I will put a giant QR code up there and you can take my survey. For those of you who've been on any of my other trips, you know what it is. It's easy. It gives me feedback about your experience in general. So I'm really pleased that you could come here today, particularly because of our panel. We have Michael Fiedler, who's a professional photographer, Sheila Patel, as you know, Ms. Patel, here from Upbeat, but she also is an event photographer and a chronicler, and Laria Liz Rosa. Ms. Rosa, who also is an event photographer as well and a lifestyle photographer. So it can give you a little idea. Again, for me, my outcome on this is that you just gain exposure to people's career journeys and pathways and what it's like to be in the field. By no means does it mean you're going to be a photographer. You could be, that's great. But if you don't hear about different careers, if you don't have experiences and engage in them, then it's harder to choose what you're going to do once you graduate from high school. So with that, I'm just going to let them introduce themselves. And if you just start with, basically a basic bio about yourself, that would be great.
Hi guys, I'm Ms. Patel. I'm the Upbeat director here at BHS. Before this though, I was a tax collector for 5.5 years, which is far less boring than what I do now. I am a self-taught photographer, so I started by just constantly stealing my parents' camera every chance I got as a kid, especially when we were on vacations. We've traveled all over the world, so I've had the opportunity to photograph many different landscapes, people, things, and I think during the pandemic was when I was the most bored with myself because town hall did close for a period of time, so that's when I really took the camera. My parents had no idea where I was at that point. And I started photographing different people, things, places, just any opportunity to get out of the house safely without breaking any of the COVID guidelines that we had in place at the time. And once things started lifting a little bit, I participated in what is called a styled shoot. So at that point, I, as a photographer, paid to take part in a setup where there was a couple that was also being paid. They had a very nice outfit that was styled for them by the lead photographer, and that is, funny enough, where I met Mrs. Rosa. So that's how we know each other. So I've kind of just grown from there, from charging like $50 for a 30-minute session and just giving every picture I take to taking on bigger weddings. I do a lot of senior portraits, so I've done a bunch of your classmates at this point. I've photographed tons of families in town, around town, out of town, so it's something that allows me to meet a lot of different people and check out new places a lot, so yeah.
Thank you.
Hi guys, I'm Mrs. Rosa. A lot of you have seen me in the library. If you haven't, you can find me there. Before I was here, I was a vet tech for 4 years. I kind of have a similar background to Ms. Patel in the sense of I picked up photography during COVID. Literally picked up my hand-me-down camera just weeks before we got shut down. Like everything stopped. And I thought to myself, okay, well maybe this isn't for me, and I put it aside and then realized that 2 weeks wasn't enough for a global pandemic to end. So I started researching using online sources like YouTube and social media to kind of see if this was something that I want to get into and what I could learn in the meantime before we were slowly getting back into going outside again and working with other people. And quickly realized that I wanted to work with couples. Like that is my favorite subject per se. I love working with couples. I love the connection between people. I love their chemistry. So it makes it really fun for me. But not only do I work with couples for weddings, I work with families, solo portraits. I've had the opportunity to work with the U.S. Army to photograph some of their helicopters and machinery. I work with local businesses to photograph their food and their drinks, local gyms. So I have ventured out a little bit, and yeah.
I'm a photojournalist. I started my career well before any of you guys were born, in the mid-'80s. I wasn't very good in high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I joined the Navy, and I ended up getting sent to an aircraft carrier. And I didn't enjoy the job that I was doing. I was basically painting the ship. And one day a guy came and was taking pictures on the ship. He was a Navy photographer. I became his friend. I was always good at art in high school, and I didn't pick a camera up until I was in the Navy on the ship, and it became my job to start taking pictures of the guys on the ship and where we were going overseas in Europe. There was 6,000 guys on the ship, and that's how I began my career in photography. I was fascinated with people and what they did for work, and I did that over in Europe. And then before I joined the Navy, I didn't even think I was going to go to college. I'm not very academic, so the Navy paid for me to go to school. I went to school for 4 years. I had a great internship with a famous Japanese photographer. I was his front man and his assistant. He did a book all about America, so we traveled to all 50 states. And I learned how to do the work that's involved beforehand before you can take pictures, which is a lot. And after college, the only thing I wanted to do was work at a newspaper. So I got an internship at the Connecticut Post in Bridgeport. Then I became a staff photographer there, moved to Waterbury, and I started my freelance career in 2003. And my specialty is people. I'm fascinated by what people do for work, their jobs, and I've made a career out of it. I did a book about it. It's called The Working Journal. I have it here if you guys want to look at it. And that's what I do. And this is sort of my passion project. This is what I do for myself and the book, and I'm working on the second edition. But I'm also an editorial photographer. I go out and do headshots, companies' pictures, editorial stuff for magazines. That's what pays the bills. But it's a pretty different sort of approach between my personal work and what I actually get paid for. So that's what I do. Kind of like you guys. Yeah.
So where did you go to school, Mr. Wheeler, when you went to college?
I went to like 3 different schools. I started in Long Island, and then I got that internship, so I had to stop school because that project lasted a year.
Where you traveled?
Yeah, I was out. He hired me. The next thing I knew, I was in a Piper Cub over Mount McKinley, loading his cameras. So that was cool. And it took a year off, and then I went to SUNY Purchase, but mostly SUNY Binghamton. And the internship was good. It was a year, and when I finished, Hiroji Kubota, this Japanese photographer that I was working for, he asked me what I was going to do, and I said that I wanted to go back to college and study photography because I wanted to do what he did. And he told me, he said, that would be a mistake. He said, the best photographers never study photography. He said, I highly suggest you do not take photography courses.
Really?
He said photography is a social skill, and you need to learn about history, anthropology, psychology, anything, but don't study photography. So I studied sociology, and I was at Binghamton. I actually was not taking pictures for a while, but I knew that's exactly what I wanted to do. So
It makes sense because if your subject is people, then there's that level.
Exactly.
Very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, he said you need to know very little about the camera to take good pictures, which I don't. I'm not a very good technician. People, they see me out taking pictures sometimes. They ask me, how many megapixels is this? What kind of? I have no idea. The camera for me is just a tool. It's just a hammer, a way to capture what I see. I think people will always express themselves through the written word. There's scientific evidence that states that the way you write your letters can really shed light on the type of personality that you have, what your interests are, what you're good at. When you present somebody a piece of blank paper, you can learn a lot about them by the way they fill it with their own handwriting. The more I kept photographing people, the more I kept wanting to incorporate what they had to say through the process of writing. It was just inevitable, I think, that the two came together. The working journal is the combination of two art forms. I bring the first art form, which is my black and white environmental portrait of the person at work. The second art form comes from the actual physical handwriting of the person. I give my subject the opportunity to be part of the artistic process, and the writing is just as important as the picture. When you present somebody a piece of blank paper, the way they fill that page with their writing, the nuances of the strokes and the way that they form their words is an art form in itself. So when it comes to people and the way they write in the book, part of me is trying to promote the art of writing, and another part of the process is trying to preserve it. Every person that's in the book, I asked them the three same questions: what they did, why they did what they did, and how they felt about their work. When they get a chance to write it in their own handwriting, I think really prompts people to try to understand a little bit more about, what they add to society, what their work means to them. And when they see it on the page, most people, they really have a good reaction to it. Foy Ware is the shoe shine guy at the professional barbershop on Pratt Street in Hartford. I've known him for years. He's a very cool guy.
Shoes finish the look of your presentation. I love shoes. I'm a shoe freak, and I love to take care of the shoe, and I love to take care of everyone else's shoes the way I take care of mine. I was excited. I wanted to see if it was projected in the fashion the way I imagined, and it did.
I got on the floor. There was a guy getting his shoes shined, and Foy was hard at work. I just like the visual way he's just captured in what he does every day, and he wrote a very interesting piece.
From Monday through Friday, we get up, we shower, shave, brush our hair, brush our teeth to make sure everything is clean, including the shoes. Hello, my name is Foy. I'm a shoe shiner. I strive for perfection, bringing the shoe back to the first time you seen it. Every detail in the shoe is a major concern of mine, for the products that I use will help me succeed.
When I'm seeing these people, I'm watching what they're doing, but I'm watching everything that's around them. I'm waiting for the moment when everything comes together and there's this integration of them and their environment, whether it's the highway guy with his rake, or the bartender with her shakers, or the orchestra conductor with his baton. I'm trying to put all the elements of the scene together to really explain what that person does and capturing it in a visually interesting way. I think the working journal just speaks to create a visual documentation of that and let people express through my images and the words that they've written how important each individual is. That's really what I'm trying to get to the heart of, what people do every day and how they embellish who we are and what we do and how we help one another.
Now you can see why I'm fascinated, because of course it has to do with jobs, careers, but the beauty behind something. And somebody who has passion for shining shoes. It reminds me of my dad. That was one of my favorite things to do for my dad was to shine shoes when he was working full time.
Yeah, I get choked up when I watch that. Foy passed away last year, and they had a memorial at the barbershop. Everyone knew Foy. He was a staple in Hartford, and they showed the video at the barbershop, had a little memorial for him. So, yeah, it's kind of special that we have that.
It's amazing. Plus that juxtaposition of photography and then the written word. So let's open up for some questions. I'm assuming some of you might have some questions, whatever they have to do with someone's career journey. Could be a generic question, and we can have all three people answer it. So, yes.
Firstly, my condolences.
Oh,
Secondly, what was your favorite place to travel, to go to?
India.
Wait.
India.
India.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you tell us why?
My favorite photographer is former French photojournalist. He founded Magnum Photography. His name was Henri Cartier-Bresson. Kind of revolutionized small format photography, and he did some of his most influential work in India. He was there when Gandhi passed, and and this was years and years ago. But I thought, if I'm interested in photographing people, I'm going to go where the most people are. And at that point, there's over 1 billion in India people now, but at that time it was approaching 1 billion. So I didn't know anybody there. I took my cameras and a backpack. I got on a plane and I just flew there. It was awesome. So yeah, it was startling. Yeah, very cool place.
Do you guys ever do travel photography? Just within the state, probably.
Well, travel with, mostly like New England and been up to Hampshire, Maine, England, North, Mass, where I live. Yeah, a little bit of everywhere. Yeah, I think maybe almost every state and region has one.
It's hard to hear you guys a little bit back here.
Oh.
Can you speak a little louder?
I myself, as I said earlier, because I've traveled all over the world. Before I formally started photography, I think my favorite location so far to just photograph just for fun was being in Antarctica right before the pandemic started. I know Ms. Galasso had seen those pictures when I did a presentation last school year, but that was probably the trip that made me realize I wanted to pursue this professionally. So the landscapes there alone were just second to none. I don't think anything could really ever compare to seeing what I saw down there.
How did you get to Antarctica?
I took a ship.
You just randomly said, I'm going to go to Antarctica?
No, I'm like really annoying, so a lot of students that work with me one-on-one have heard this story, but like my sisters and I are absolutely spoiled 30-something-year-old kids, and our parents still pay in full for our family vacations, and I got really irritated one year. I'm like, I don't want to go to Portugal. Being a spoiled brat, I don't want to go to Portugal. That's not the country I want to go to. So my dad said if I stopped whining about it, I could pick the next vacation, and I said, looked him dead in the eye, and I said, I want to take me to Antarctica. And the night I had LASIK eye surgery in February of 2019, I had like the little Jason from Friday the 13th like goggles over my eyes because I couldn't see anything. And he's trying to show me an email confirming that a year from that day we would be flying down to Argentina to start that trip for ourselves. So we spent 12 days on an expedition cruise, just hopping from spot to spot in Antarctica.
Interesting. More questions?
This can go for anyone on the panel. What is your main inspiration for getting certain angles and shots and things like that? What do you find to be the most powerful about a specific photo?
For me, I'm a hopeless romantic, right? Which is why I enjoy working with couples. And for me, my inspiration kind of comes from a lot of like cinema, like movies. So I just love like a good cinematic shot. Like I have examples here.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah. You want? Yeah. Can you tell how technically challenged I can be? I'm not. I would just stop. Everybody, right? Of course, that's what it is. We're just gonna screen share. Okay. Now it's yours.
While you guys are doing tech support, I have a question for Mr. Fiedler. I saw you were writing in the journal yourself. Like, have you practiced a lot of calligraphy and doing that in preparation for your work, or do you prepare your subjects for anything, or just kind of take it as is, or?
Do I prepare my subjects for that?
Yeah. Or is working in their own handwriting, or like
No. The biggest not complaint. I don't know what the word would be. When I do this project, is people are worried about with their handwriting. They say, I have terrible handwriting.
Right.
Everybody says that, but for me, it's more of a tactile expression. It's like a fingerprint. It doesn't matter. There's some people in the book you can't even read their handwriting. And
Okay.
that's like, those are some of the coolest ones.
Okay.
That's what I was going to say. What if you can't read their
No,
handwriting?
no, it's okay. It's just, it's
Do you
an art.
type it out so you know? You can keep it somewhere so you know what
I
that's
might
supposed to
pick a
say?
quote out of it. I don't do everything verbatim, but I
Okay.
just, it's just that their artistic expression, so, yeah.
That's interesting.
Pretty cool. Thank you.
So yeah, you can to answer your question. At
Lovely.
least for me, it's more so cinematic approach and just kind of almost documentary style. I mostly think of it as like a movie still, right? If I was watching a romance movie and you know, the emotion that they like just a cinematic approach, kind of like just caught in the moment rather than manufactured or self-imposed. So I find my inspiration like movies, music, also other people's work just in general, and people's stories. Like in the library, there's a whole bunch of books that I can just skim through and be like, that would be like a great moment for me. That angle, I could just envision it in my head. So that would be my inspiration per se. Like that, the one on the right, that's my absolute favorite. That's been my absolute favorite session so far.
The far right.
Yep. And and you can see in the center here, it's almost like I'm not there.
Yeah.
They're just doing their own
Oh
thing.
my gosh.
And it was just an absolute perfect. That was actually a styled shoot.
Where was that? Do you know?
That was in Rhode Island, or something.
Sorry.
It was creepy. It was a hike, but it worked.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's amazing.
My inspiration comes from just, I'm very much of the capture just everyday moments. I don't think that you need to have a special reason to have professional pictures taken. So that's why I like to encourage, especially families where they're like, well, the kids aren't going to cooperate, they're going to be screaming. Okay, that's the season of life you're in, and if they're screaming through the whole pictures, you're going to laugh about it in 10 years at least. So I try to keep it very natural with my families, and
How did you get your internship, Mr. Fiedler?
I joined the NPPA, National Press Photographers Association, back in the day, and they had what they call flying short courses, where you could go and meet photo editors, people from newspapers.
So you were in school, you were in college.
Oh yeah,
you were doing there.
I knew exactly what I wanted to do. So they helped me put my portfolio together, my pictures, and eventually I got a chance at the Connecticut Post. Yeah.
so I've known Miss DeChico and her family since before she was Mrs. DeChico. I've known her close to 15 years at this point, since I was a freshman at BHS. I've known the boys since they were born. Her husband and her met through Upbeat, so whole love story. We love it. So during the pandemic, when everyone was stuck at home, she reached out to me and asked if I would do their family photos. And again, like, it was just, are the boys going to cooperate? No, because they're two little under 10 human beings that are just like, what are we doing, and why is Sheil, because that's what they know me as, just being obnoxious taking our pictures. So it was just kind of capture the personality, let them do their thing. We call her younger son Baby Moose. I think they call him Little Moose now, but I will always call him Baby Moose. He just is like a copy of his dad. And trying our best here. Were these my best pictures? No, because that was 2 years ago and I was maybe 6 months into figuring out what the heck I was doing with the camera. But I appreciate that they trusted me to try it out. Since then, so these are photos from just this past summer. If anyone knows the Gambats family, their older daughter is in 8th grade over at Mickey. So I know them through Shuttle Meadow Country Club after doing a couple events for them. And they asked to just do a quick 30-minute photo shoot with the kids. So they've got a 4th grader and an 8th grader. And just keeping it really simple. I try not, for me, because I focus so much on families, I try not to do anything over the top that looks unnatural for a family. Just capture it as is. So we just got a bunch of these. And then I also do a lot of seniors, especially in the fall and the summer. So this is for our seniors in the room. This is Marissa Medizica from, I think we did this in September of this school year, down at Harkness, which Mrs. Rosa knows we, at this point, should be like paying rent to that state park. We drive down there
It's one of the
so
places
much.
to go.
We spend far too much time down there. Mrs. Rosa is going to be doing my family photos down there in a couple months. Someone should be driving us down there. It's every weekend. So these are Marissa's pictures, and yeah, I've done weddings as well. I try to follow the same thing. I was able to photograph my best friend's proposal a year and a half ago, and it was very much just like capture the moment, the emotion that's behind it, and don't try to force anything. So we've got her sobbing hysterically when she sees one of her best friends from 6 years ago, where she hasn't seen her in person. Who knows how long it was, not expecting her to be there. And I try to be straightforward because the creativity part of it sometimes turns into a mind block for me. So I just do what I see right in front of me and stick with that.
I did have another question that you mentioned too, Mr. Fiedler, was about setup. You talked about setting up that can take time, or how you think about it before you set up for before you take a picture.
Well,
Prep, or what would you be?
okay, well, I mean, like there would be some minimal setup if I was doing, for example, headshots at Mass Mutual. You know, just put my light in and figure out where the people are going to be, and then go with there. I tend not to want to do much setup. My first photo editor, Jane, at the Connecticut Post, when I first started working for her, she said, Michael, if you spend the entire day taking pictures for me, and you come back to the office and your clothes are not dirty, your pictures probably aren't that good. So what I'm doing is I'm always sitting, I'm crawling, I'm climbing up on stuff. Especially with this working project, if you look, I brought a copy of the book, I'll read with you guys. Most times when people are working or doing stuff there, I want to see their face. So if they're working at a bench or working at something, I'm always sitting on the floor and I'm shooting up, because when I'm photographing people, I look for two things. I'm watching their eyes and their hands, and when they do that one thing that's interesting, that's what I'm waiting for. So yeah, you have to get dirty.
That's great advice. I like that. Yes, Ms. Galasso.
Question for everybody. What do you get to open up your subjects? So some people are more open to wanting their photo taken and some more shy and reserved. Are there means that you use? Because our students are doing portraits as their next unit. We're finishing up action now and going to portraiture. How do you get somebody to open up to want to take the photo and capture that moment?
I mostly just try to engage my subject in conversation. I almost try to make them forget that the camera's even there. So whether it be like just a prompt that I have going on in my head that I think beforehand, or I just kind of feel out and see like what their interests are. Like with the U.S. Army, when we did the helicopters, it was a pretty insane moment, but a lot of people there were kind of quiet and reserved, and they didn't really want to talk to me. They didn't really want their picture taken. And that was okay, but I got them talking about their job. And that was enough for them to open up a little bit and just capture them in the moment talking or laughing about some kind of inside joke that they had with each other, made for a natural moment that I didn't have to manufacture or fabricate. That was all them on their own. So mostly just talking is at least one way for me to get them to open up, and again, just to make them forget that the camera's even there, that I'm there doing quote unquote my job. To make it as natural and comfortable as possible.
I personally try to add movement to my photos because I think if you can get people moving, they tend to forget about the fact that, again, the camera's right in front of them. So I will, especially with my female seniors, because the boys were just never, ever asked to do what I asked them to do. I try to have them do something that just gets them moving a little bit more that I've seen, there's an app called Unscripted that a lot of photographers use, and it provides poses and prompts that you can use to try to get a certain image to look similar to what you see as the example. So a lot of them will say incorporate some type of movement. Sometimes I'll tell my client to try to laugh as hard as they can, even if it feels stupid or they know that it's a fake laugh, because at some point you realize how ridiculous it is what you're doing, and it turns into a real one, so you can capture different emotions on their faces through that.
I mean, with my work, I'm always going for something that's extremely authentic, and a lot of my subjects are surprised and taken aback that I want to photograph them in a situation where you do not normally take pictures of somebody. People are having a wedding, they're senior parents, they want to be photographed. I'm approaching people when they're at work, waitresses, truck drivers, state troopers, circus jugglers, stone carvers, accountants. That was one of the most challenging ones. I mean, taking a picture of an accountant
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
was tough.
All I
but
can think of is a cubicle.
But we did it. I figured a way out to do it. But yeah, just finding people in their natural state. I mean, it's a little advantage for me because I don't have to communicate with them. I just need to be in their space while they're working on an aircraft, doing the maintenance. The Connecticut DOT, I was bugging them last summer because I wanted permission to go out at night photographing the guys that are paving the highways.
Mm.
And they were, why in the world would you want to take a picture of a guy paving the highway at night? It was like one of my best pictures, really cool.
I bet.
The steam is coming up, he's got the rake, and it just needed to be there. And then let them do what they do is kind of, for me anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think what I like about too that aspect is that you value any kind of work. Like particularly that video, that short video, to someone to say they've dedicated their life to shining shoes. I mean, nowadays you'd be like, well, that wasn't my career choice. The value of what he does and the art and the passion that he has in doing it, you can just see that connection, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, Gabe.
A question for Miss Rosa. Have you ever worked with a couple that was like, these guys are really not good for each other?
Oh, I'm worried about that chemistry.
You had to be
Gotcha.
like, this is kind of weird. You have to like fake it.
I'll be as transparent as possible. I have had a few couples where you can just tell that one half of the party was like, we're gonna do this and I'm dragging you with me. And the other half was just like, this sucks, I don't wanna do it at all, I don't even wanna touch you. And then what do you do when that happens, right? I mean, you have to make the best of the situation, but you also can't make anyone do anything they don't wanna do. So again, just by talking, getting them, just trying to be as their most natural and authentic self. The only way I got this person to open up was literally with a bucket of cookies that I brought with me because I offer snacks during my sessions. So he was like, oh, cookies involved? Sure, I'll hold her hand, I'll kiss her forehead, that's fine. Like, if it works, it works.
That's kind of embarrassing.
Hey.
It happens.
Yes, Mrs. Glass.
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Fiedler. Since you're doing more people in the moment, like it's not a staged shot where it's like you're going out into the job field and stuff, what do you do to make those connections? Are you doing it like you're just going like, Brandon Stanton on like Humans in New York where you're walking up on the street and saying, hi, I'm Michael Fiedler?
It's
Or
hard.
do you like,
It's
do you
hard.
actually prep ahead of time? Or?
Yeah, no, finding subjects is difficult because people are unexpecting that they would want somebody photographing them at their work. So what I try to do is just, I can come up with like an idea of somebody that I think might be, okay, so circus juggler. I knew circus juggler would be a fantastic picture. But I didn't know how to find one, so I went on Instagram.
Okay.
And I Googled, best best juggler in New York. And I found this guy, and it's one of my favorite pictures in the book. He looked like Johnny Depp. He wears this black jacket, and he's like a street performer. And I went, and he was kind of easy to photograph because he was so neurotic and different and artistic. But state trooper, much more difficult. It's so I actually was telling Millie, I really would like to photograph like a teacher or somebody. Companies, organizations, individuals, it is so easy for them, it's easier for them to say no than to invite me in to scrutinize them with a camera for 2 hours.
Right.
The upside is after I'm at a place, they love it. They're like, oh my gosh, can we get one of these photos? You know, it was great. You know, you gave this person a voice. I know, it's how it is. But finding people that are willing to let me photograph them in an unusual place, their workplace, it's not easy. You know?
What do you do about like copyright and permissions? Like, do you have to have them sign a waiver when they do that?
I do,
Like,
yeah. Or and everybody that's in the book, I'll give them a copy of the picture for free. Yeah. It's not a great business model, but I love it.
I was going to say the difference is we talked about passion, but also paying the bills.
Yeah,
Right.
I hate doing headshots.
Paying the bills.
Oh, I'm good at it, but and I get paid well to do it. But I'd rather go photograph, waitress or truck driver guy.
Is it because doing the working journal, a lot of it's just on your own? And
It's me. Well, it's because no one's paying me to do it, and I do it the way I want to do it. I don't have a creative director saying, yeah, well, then do this or this back. No, it's mine. I own it.
Where do you sell your book then?
It's on my website.
Okay.
I've given away more books than I've sold. I didn't do it. It cost me $25,000 to put the book together, and I literally have given away more than I've sold. But I didn't do it. I didn't do it to sell books or to make money. I did it because now, if I approach a company or a business or an individual, I don't tell them I have an idea for a book. I say I did a book, and here it is. It's a $25,000 business card.
Wow. So this is a picture of, so sometimes I'm hoping it happens through referral. Someone says, hey, you really should document this person. So this is a picture of Carol Del Vecchio, and she is a master welder, and she works at Goodwin University as an instructor. She also used to teach at a Snowtown Community College as well. And I knew she was an interesting character, and she should be documented. So I connected through LinkedIn with Mr. Fiedler, and that happened. And she actually has done a career panel for us here at BHS for some students who really wanted to hear more about welding, and particularly women in an unusual trade. And we got to hear her background. So
Here she is here. This is Millie, or Carol.
she has part-time welding students that she teaches in a shed in her backyard, getting them fascinated with welding. She was a National Honor Scholar. She went to an Ivy League college. She worked in corporate life. She speaks like 7 languages, and she worked for the court system. And she decided she missed her life that she had experienced with her family, which was tinkering, working with her hands, getting a little dirty. And she gave all that up and learned to become a welder. She actually was a truck driver, and then diesel fuel got too expensive, and then became a welder. So, interesting stories. That's what I love about that journal. It's like there's stories behind everything, you know.
Yeah.
All right.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the writing? I think you mentioned that you asked them 3 different questions.
I ask everybody the same 3 questions. What do you do? Why do you do it? And how do you feel about your work? I get a great variety of responses. Some of the best writing has been done by people who I didn't think would do a very good writing job. I was at the Connecticut Convention Center, and there's a guy that sits in the booth that collects the money after you park your car.
Yeah.
And I'm saying to myself, what's it like to do that all day? And I walked up to his booth. He thought I was crazy. And he didn't understand why I would want to take a picture of him. But I did, and it was kind of a cool picture. And then I gave him the book. He said, well, what do I have to do? I said, you have to write. Most people think that they can write it, take the book, and give it back to me. But it has to be done then, because if I gave the book to people, they would never do the writing.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when I give it to them, I'm like, you got to do it now. And he came up with this amazing piece, this poetic piece about what it's like to sit in this glass cubicle all day, and you know, cars that go by. So that was pretty cool. And some people, I'm thinking they're going to blow it out of the park. They're going to write something amazing, and they kind of don't. So,
Can
but
you
it's
share one of your favorite ones? Can you share one of your favorite entries?
well. Since I talked about it, I don't know. You know what? I'll use this one on the back. There's a girl in New York City that she writes on stickers like graffiti, and she puts these stickers everywhere. And she didn't want her face shown in the picture. So I followed her around, and she had done. She's like hiding her face, and one of the reasons I love this entry is because her handwriting is just mind-boggling. The loops and this, it's maybe hard to see from up there.
Was that her? That's what, like she was an artist. And
She's
that
kind of an artist,
Interesting.
and this is her, and she's. I mean, you probably can't see it from there, but the picture's pretty marginal. But I just thought her handwriting was spectacular.
Oh yeah. I don't know. Sorry, I have like amazing questions.
So it's yeah, everybody's imprint with the way they form their letters and the way they approach a piece of blank paper, how they fill it, the slant of the writing. So I mean, hers was particularly interesting. Yeah.
Perfect and concrete. So it's just she just walks around the city sticking stickers up.
Yeah. Go ahead.
That's nice.
You've been taking pictures of like any author.
Authors. Yeah, golf writer. Authors would be great. Yeah. Who else? A couple of authors. If you know of anybody, let me know. I'll go take their
I barely
picture.
see her.
For sure.
Sort of
I have a question for the three of you. I know a lot of kids are interested in business here, so being a photographer is also a business. So what is the business side of life that, like, if you want to become a photographer, what does somebody need to know to be able to, like you said, pay the bills?
Yep.
For me personally, it's a one-woman show. You can outsource a lot of things, but I feel like I'm just at the beginning of my career, so I'm doing everything myself, from the marketing to the scheduling, the calls, actually going out and doing the photos and then coming back home and culling through them and editing. I do it all. But marketing is really, really, really important. Getting the word out there, putting yourself out there, even if it's just hanging out with your friends and saying, hey, let me take a picture of you and I'm going to post it, whether it be on social media or a website that you're starting up yourself. Just putting your work out there. It does take a lot of time. It does take a lot of effort. Because ultimately, if you truly want to do this in the long run, and you want to make money out of it, right? People want to see your work. They want to see your experience. They want to see what you do, your style. And if you're not really working on marketing yourself, how are they supposed to know, other than word of mouth? Right? So it's very time consuming. You definitely have to dedicate yourself to it. But of course, have the passion for it too. Don't get into something just to make a quick buck, because I personally think that does translate in your work.
It's important too to understand your value and get paid what you're worth. I learned this years ago. I was working at the newspaper and just starting out, and a woman had asked me to come do some event photography for her, and I did it. She loved the pictures. I told this to my former wife, and she was really good at business, and she said, "That's great, you got this job." She said, "What did you charge them?" And I was like, I said, "It was an easy job, and it just took me like an hour, and you know, the photography is simple for me, so I almost feel guilty taking money from people. I just charge her $50. She said, Michael, when the carburetor breaks on your car and you go to the mechanic, is it easy for him to replace the car? Yes. You know why? Because that's what he does, and it's because he knows how to do that, and you don't. So you guys know how to take pictures, really good ones. So you need to charge your true worth for that, and then another 30% on top of that.
There's such a huge business component to it as well that is so incredibly confusing. Just like, you know, when you're all adults and you're finally filing your own taxes, like that's one headache, but to do business taxes, paying quarterly, all of that nonsense, really makes you question your sanity, I think. And when I see like all the photographers freaking out during tax season, it just reminds me like, oh my God, what did we get ourselves into and why are we doing this? But it also reminds you to charge what you're worth. Because like Michael said, that $50, there's something about small business owners that for some reason, like we attach ourselves to like, oh, if I do just 50, that's just affordable enough, like I get something out of it, when really like you have to factor in the cost of the camera. Those average $3,000 a piece. Most people are not shooting with just one lens. Those are at least $1,000 a piece. The softwares that you have to use to edit, I personally am one woman show as well because of the fact that I'm a control freak. I don't want anyone getting in the way of how I do things, and that's why I don't ask for help with how I get it all done. I think the only thing that I automate is my culling process, which is when you select which pictures you're keeping versus what you're getting rid of, and I use an AI software. There's actually a Connecticut photographer that created this program, and I've met him before. He's fantastic, incredibly talented, shoots down in South America a lot, even though he's Connecticut based. And it just processes that, but that's really the only thing I'll let go of. But that's like $120 a year to have a robot take care of that process for me. But like Mrs. Rosa said, the marketing part is just probably the biggest thing, because if you don't have people coming to you, you're only going to keep yourself going for so long. Having a website, having active social media presence, especially right now, like that is the best way to get people to figure out who you are, your shooting style, all of that. So
also protect yourself. Contracts are very important. If you're doing event photography or just weddings and stuff like that, I always stand by. I always have a contract. You could, you know, look one up from scratch. You can find websites that can help you put one together, get in contact with a lawyer. And of course, this is all like down the line, you know. But just so that it's something that you have in mind, because it is very serious. Your time and your money and your talent, there's so much value to that you don't want anyone to take advantage of what you can provide.
Are you open to do this full time?
Am I open to do this full time?
Open or hoping?
Oh,
Okay. So, ideally, in a perfect world, I would. Okay. But I am also a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a homeowner, and my priorities are making sure that my family is, you know, well standing right now, and at least on this side of the country, photography has its peak season and it has its low season for at least what I photograph. So peak season starts in April, ends in September, which is warm weather, right? Everyone's getting married, people want photos outside, and then we get into the lonely, sad, dark winters where no one wants to take pictures. So what do I do then, right?
Here.
Yeah. So I'm here. So let's say in a perfect world I wanted to make to the West Coast, I could possibly do that full time for sure, but it's not a reality for me right now. But it is something I still love it. I'm passionate about it. It's my creative outlet. I've always known that I needed a creative career. Like I tried going to culinary school. It was too black and white for me. I couldn't do it. I was a vet tech for 4 years, still too black and white. I just wasn't interested. I've always needed a creative outlet. So even though right now full-time photography isn't a possibility for me, it's still something that I very much enjoy, and maybe somewhere down the line it could be a full-time gig.
sweet.
I personally like keeping it part-time for myself because then I can control how much time and effort I have to put into it. So I usually, with Upbeat being mostly just a 10-month position, my breaks are usually free for me, and summer is usually free except for this summer. I was just complaining to Mrs. Rosa about that. I can just focus more on it in the summer when it is a peak season, and I can get regular bookings out of it, and then kind of just pull back a little bit. Although I always make exceptions for certain families to not wait until school breaks to do that. So I know I'm shooting Ethan's family this weekend. We're just trying to work out the whole weather situation first. But that's actually another reason why I focus more on the summers and keeping it part-time, because the weather just is really frustrating to work around. We're looking at just rain showers this Saturday when I'm supposed to be outside with him and his family at Harkness. So we're just trying to work that out. In the summer, it's typically easier, and people just tend to have more free time and flexible schedules to be able to move to a different day very quickly. So yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, it confounds me. Why does a Navy need a photographer? I know, I don't understand that.
There was 25 photographers just on my ship, the Eisenhower, the aircraft carrier. Half of them, probably more than half of them, were intelligence photography, target photography. There's cameras on the bottoms of planes,
Okay.
and when they go over targets, they'll
Like reconnaissance.
Exactly.
Okay.
The other half was PR. We're in France, and like the president of France flies aboard the ship, and we're there to capture the photographs and take pictures. There's when the ship goes over to any ship goes on a cruise, you come out with what's called a cruise book. It's like a high school yearbook. It's huge. It's like 600 pages that documents all the different departments and the ports that you went to. My job was to fill my pockets full of film and go out to town and, London and France, Israel, Turkey, Spain, everywhere, and document where we were. So, yeah.
Interesting. You guys have any more questions?
So you guys said that you work around the weather, right?
I personally work around the weather. I'm too temperamental otherwise.
You don't have that problem, do you?
No, mostly I do stuff indoors, or if people are working outside in bad weather, it's even better for me. Yeah. Well, it's a different genre. You get.
And talking about the weather, what do you use to protect all that expensive gear in bad weather?
Well, it's got to be really, really pouring rain for you to be worried about that. I remember I used to, when I photographed at high schools, sports is a big thing. So I would duct tape an umbrella to my monopod and have like a little shelter.
Mm.
If it was pouring that badly, but usually not an issue.
Okay. I was going to also ask, Mrs. Miller asked me if she wanted to go get some water. What do you guys use for your photo editing software?
Lightroom.
Lightroom.
I wouldn't touch Photoshop with a 10-foot pole. Couldn't do it.
Which is funny because these guys all know Photoshop.
I'm glad they do. So when I need help with Photoshop one day, I know exactly the group to go to because it couldn't be me to learn. No, thank you.
I use Photo Mechanic and Photoshop.
Okay.
I'm a creature of habit. I still edit my pictures the same way I did when I was at the newspapers. That's not my strength. The technical part of it. I need a way to look at my pictures. I'm looking for one good one. So kind of keep it simple.
No, one of the reasons why I haven't taught Lightroom is because it's database driven. So like, why would Lightroom be advantageous for somebody who just takes so many photos all at once in terms of editing, culling? I think you guys have like presets for like certain filters and stuff. Explain more about that.
So I personally use a preset because I feel that it helps me with the consistency between my editing. Some sessions will look a little bit different than others because a lot of it depends on the lighting that was in the space that we were using, if it was a super cloudy day versus a super sunny day, day versus night. But for me, it's just really easy because if God forbid I make a mistake, it's very straightforward on how to correct it as long as the image has not been completely deleted. I also find that it's easiest for me personally to use Lightroom because of the fact that I started on the cloud version, so it was just like an abbreviated version of their classic one, which is definitely more in depth, focuses more on details and everything. And yeah, that's why I personally enjoy it, because it's just all right there in one spot, and so that way I don't load up my computer with a bunch of files and taking up space, because you can always just go back to the hard drive.
Yeah.
Not that this part of this question or anything, but I also just wanted to offer just a quick little something to put in the back of your brain. Like, if you do pick up photography for whatever reason you do, it opens so many doors. Like I started with the couples and the weddings, and that's what I'm doing now. But now I'm going back to school for digital marketing and social media. And I've had the opportunity to reach out to local restaurants, golf courses, just businesses, and say, hey, I have this skill, this is what I'm going to school for, do you mind if I do this for you? I can take these pictures and you can post them online, or I can help you run the social media. And luckily I haven't had anyone say no. So it can be something so small that can lead to so much for you guys. I understand that, but anyways, my generation, we're always on the phone, and social media is a big prevalent thing now. So even just learning how to do this on the side as a hobby can open up so many doors for you, whether you choose it as a career or a hobby itself. So just wanted to give you that little tidbit.
All right, well, let's just wind up with, what piece of advice would you give anyone entering this field at all, whether it's part-time, for fun, or anything?
Just try. Just pick it up, try, see what works, what doesn't work. Take advantage of friends who are probably willing to model for you, because you gotta start somewhere. So if you're not willing to at least start with something small, you can't really get anywhere from there. I see a hand up in the corner though.
Oh, yeah.
From the observer, nobody wanted to give up. They're like, they just went too far.
Yeah, there has. And I think it's always going to be that way. There's going to be highs and lows to what you're doing. Sometimes I've gone home feeling defeated. I'm like, that session did not go how I wanted it to. The lighting was not the best situation, or, the crowd was too rowdy, or I couldn't get everyone's attention. But then I kind of have to reframe my thinking and say, I went out there, I did this, not many people do it, and they chose me for a reason. And I try to make the best of what I have. And then, the next session or the next event or the next product, whatever I'm photographing, it's a new opportunity to try again and kind of just put it back my lesson learned, gotta keep moving.
No, this is what I do. It's the only thing I'm good at.
No, I go back to what I just said. You started somewhere, so it's, if I'm really frustrated with how something worked out, I just compare it. I literally will compare it to, if I looked at my first wedding, my first senior session, my first family session, I'm like, well, I grew from there at least. So
It evolves, right?
yeah, I've gotten better and I've worked on my craft, and it's at least I can show that this may have sucked, but I know that I'm getting better and I'm working on being a better photographer. So.
Kathy had a question.
Do any of you guys ever work in film, or is it all digital?
I'm scared of film.
I want to try film so bad. I want to. I have to find the proper resources to get me there. Is my next step.
I have a videographer friend that asks to borrow my camera, my Canon, because it takes such amazing video. But I had no idea, because I never did. I don't use. I'm just, I'm a still shooter, and I kind of handicap myself a little bit, because people will ask, companies will ask, oh, do you do video too? And the camera does, but I don't. It's just not what I do.
Mr. Fueler, you had started an era when it probably was film, and then you transitioned over to digital. What was that? Because
It was cool.
The kids don't know
yeah.
what that was like.
No, it was
Yeah.
cool. We were on the ship, and it obviously was all film cameras. And I remember it was '87. There was this film crew from Life magazine they came on the ship and they had this digital camera. It was like this tall, and we were just amazed by this thing. Probably like 2 megapixel, and it was so it had just started out. So
Delete a picture, you didn't print it.
yeah, no, and we were like, they
Process
would
it.
take it and it'd be like it's recorded, it's on a paper. That was kind of cool. And now everybody in this room has a camera that's way better than that in their pocket right now. So it was interesting, yeah. But I'm glad I learned it the old way too. I think it helped my the process of me, developing my vision in the traditional way.
Did you do a lot of your own darkroom printing, or did you get it sent out when you were working for the Navy?
But we had 4 darkrooms on the ship.
Wow.
Yeah, I was in charge of the black and white darkroom.
Okay.
Yeah, we did everything. It was pretty cool.
Do you miss the hands-on process?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. You'd go out and you'd shoot, you develop your film, and invariably you'd think you had something good, and you didn't. And on the days when you didn't think you had anything, you had a really good picture. But now
Yeah.
I mean, I can go out and take 1,200 pictures of somebody, and I know which one it is. Yeah, it just happens immediately. It's kind of cool.
Okay, sorry, so we were ending with last piece of advice. Try, take risks.
Just get to it. I mean, find what you're passionate about. Whether it's people, objects, landscape, cars. I know photographers who focus on end of life, like animals that came through the hospital when I used to work as a vet tech. Food, like there's so much that you can literally photograph anything and everything, but it's up to you. It's up to your eye how you perceive it and how you want to capture it and what to do with it. So just if there's like the slightest bit of like interest in your brain, I'd say go for it. Whether it be on your phone or a camera that will hand me down, or there's online you can rent cameras for a week. So there's definitely options out there for you.
Whether it's photography or whatever career path you decide to do, keep doing what you do a little bit better every day, and never, ever accept the first no for no. That's it.
Nice. Thank you very much.
Oh, can I ask one more thing?
Of course.
You had mentioned how important social media is. It really is. Would it be okay if the kids followed my Instagram, my working journal?
As far as I know, it is.
If you want. Okay. So if you have your phones, I'm always looking for a larger
On
audience.
Instagram? Okay.
It's the working journal.
I can put it in video too, in case you don't.
Yeah.
It won't even pull it down here unless they're
It might, yeah, because it might
Yeah.
get blocked.
It's
Because
this,
we're in the special place.
yeah, it's the same name as my book, The Working Journal.
Yeah.
It's new stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the QR code up there is for you to do the survey, which is data that I need at the end, saying you would select this as a career panel. I just collect data at the end saying how students perceive this experience so that I can evolve as well. I take you about 2 seconds.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for your time today. That was really amazing. Nice to hear everyone.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.